3 days. That's how long she was gone. Doctor's note in hand. Surgical tape still hugging her lower back like a sad souvenir from the MRI dungeon. 3 damn days. And when she hobbled back into that glass-walled circus they called an office, the first thing she saw was a pair of neon green Hokas prancing on her desk. Correction, on where her desk used to be. The CFO, let's call him Brad, because of course his name was Brad, mid-stride on a high-end voice-activated treadmill that had her name taped over with a post-it that said Mobility Zone Beta. She blinked. Maybe it was a flexoril. Maybe it was the insult. But she stood there like someone who just walked in on their ex using their toothbrush to scrub the toilet. "Oh, hey," Brad chirped between gulps of something aggressively green in a blender bottle. "We're trying movement-based productivity hubs. I feel so aligned already." Her spine screamed. Her soul did a slow backflip. And her desk, that beautifully adjusted ergonomic setup she spent a year perfecting to prevent nerve flare-ups, gone. Replaced by a treadmill desk so absurdly bougie it had a touchscreen that monitored your wellness aura. She tried to laugh. It came out sideways. Her polite Slack message to HR vanished into the void. Auto response: "Thank you for reaching out to People Ops. For faster assistance, try our new chatbot, Joybot smiling face with smiling eyes. Joybot, naturally, told her to stretch often and try breathing exercises when she asked about her missing equipment. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She did what any underpaid DevOps engineer and single mother would do in the face of institutional gaslighting. She started a new folder on her desktop and titled it, all caps, ergonomically screwed. But hey, quick pause, friend. If this tale of corporate clownery is resonating even a little, do me a solid. Hit subscribe. I'm clawing my way to my first 10,000 subscribers the same way I clawed back my lumbar health. One brutal story at a time. You stick with me. I'll keep delivering chaos. Back to the madness. It wasn't just the desk. The day after she sent a second escalation to HR, which got marked resolved before anyone responded, her chair vanished too. Poof. Someone broke into the building, ignored the MacBooks and monitors, and made off with her lumbar-supporting sidekick. In its place, a laminated sign taped to her monitor arm like a ransom note from an over-caffeinated yoga instructor. Sitting is the new smoking. Get moving. She had scoliosis, 2 herniated discs, and a prescription for muscle relaxers strong enough to turn a horse into soup. Movement-first mindset was the new policy, they said. Regressive office evolution, said the internal memo, signed off with a gif of a cartoon dinosaur turning into a treadmill. When she brought up her medical documentation, HR claimed it was under review for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Brad's nephew, who had once confused GitHub with Instagram, was caught napping in the beanbag room and got promoted to Cloud Agility Associate. So she stood all day alone in flats from Ross Dress for Less and an old back brace that creaked when she breathed too hard, typing YAML with fingers that trembled more from rage than carpal tunnel. But here's the thing they forgot. Invisible doesn't mean inactive. She wasn't loud. She wasn't flashy. But she watched. She logged. She archived every insult wrapped in HR buzzwords and every wellness initiative that ignored actual bodies. She timed how long the CFO used a treadmill each day, 21 minutes, tops. She started recording Slack conversations to her local machine with a time-stamped backup, her version of cardio, setting digital traps for those who thought a treadmill could replace a human being. And when her back gave out again, this time halfway through a Friday deployment window, they told her to walk it off, literally. So she smiled and waited. The chair was gone. Not wheeled away by janitorial staff, not borrowed by some desperate intern during hackathon week. Gone. 1 minute it was under her desk. The next, it was a ghost. She checked the break room, the wellness alcove, even the goddamn kombucha station. Nothing. No trace of the lumbar-loving relic that had carried her through 2 outages, 3 product launches, and 1 particularly nasty divorce Zoom hearing. In its place, a sign, laminated, zip-tied to her monitor arm like a war crime. Sitting is the new smoking. Stand up for your life. Below it, in Comic Sans, no less, a QR code linking to a TEDx talk by some tech bro who looked like a sentient jawline, in a Lululemon hoodie. She blinked twice, checked her messages. Surely this was a prank, maybe from facilities. But the Slack from People Ops confirmed it. Hi there. We've transitioned to a movement-first work culture. To request seating accommodations, please submit a MEAP02 form with updated documentation, smiling face with smiling eyes. Namaste. Her medical files had already been submitted twice, with scans and a typed note from a spinal specialist whose handwriting made ancient runes look legible. But apparently, that wasn't enough for the HR overlords, who now required updated x-rays and evidence of a long-term condition that limits standing base engagement. Standing base engagement. She stared at that phrase for a full 60 seconds before whispering, "I will burn this place to the goddamn ground." The next week, worse. Everyone started parroting the policy like they were in a spin class for the soul. "You'll feel the dopamine by noon," chirped the VP of product, leaning on a Bosa ball like a sweaty oracle. "It's all about posture and presence," said the creative director, who spent most of her workday filming TikToks of herself stretching in ethically sourced leggings. Meanwhile, her lower back felt like a box of damp Pop-Tarts in a microwave. And yet, through it all, she didn't explode. She didn't cry. She didn't email a resignation titled, "F you very much." Instead, she opened a folder on her desktop titled Ergonomically Screwed and began logging every change, time-stamped, dated, indexed. Every Slack, every sign, every denial masked as policy. She screenshot the QR code. She logged the bot replies. She even recorded Brad, the CFO, proudly bragging in the all-hands that our wellness shift has cut seating costs by 17%. Of course, Brad still had a damn chair, an Aeron throne with massage settings and a sticker that said, "Reserved for CFO gains." She, meanwhile, stood, wobbling slightly next to a cactus someone put on her old desk for mental clarity. By day 9 of no chair, the bruises on her knees from leaning against the desk had turned purple. She began using an old jacket as padding, folded under her elbows. When the CTO walked by and gave her thumbs up for her warrior energy, she almost bit through her own tongue. But even that wasn't what broke her. What finally cracked the last splinter of empathy inside her ribs was this: an email blast. Subject line: "Stretching is winning. Join our weekly step challenge." And beneath it, in a rainbow of fonts, was a leaderboard. The CFO was in first place, Brad, from his treadmill desk that he used maybe twice a week while watching YouTube videos of other people running. She scrolled past the memes, past the GIFs, down to the very bottom, where a new rule had been added. Employees may not bring personal seating unless approved by People Ops. Unauthorized chairs will be removed. That night, she walked home slower than usual. Her son noticed. "You're back again, Mom." She nodded, peeled off the KT tape like it was her skin. Then she sat down on the only chair she had left, a cracked dining room stool, and began copying her ergonomically screwed folder to an encrypted drive. Wanted posture? She'd give them leverage. It started with a username she didn't recognize. She was pulling logs at 11:43 p.m., standard insomnia, standard build pipeline chaos, when a new commit appeared from someone called J. Brantley95. No profile photo, no project history, just a commit message so breathtakingly vague it could have been a fortune cookie. Optimize stuff plus tweak, deploy thing LOL. She stared at it, blinked, opened the diff, and almost vomited. He'd overwritten 3 deployment scripts, removed timeout buffers, hard-coded a database password in plain text, and replaced her carefully versioned environment variables with what looked like a lorem ipsum generator for tech bros. Her favorite line: "If ends equals prodish, push it real good." The kind of code that made angels quit heaven. She followed the audit trail, digging through permission logs. Sure enough, someone had elevated access for J. Brantley95 just 36 hours ago. And that someone? Brad, the CFO. The same Brad who once said, "DevOps is just fancy IT with better hoodies." A few more clicks, and it all clicked into place. Jason Brantley, 22, recently graduated from an online boot camp that taught JavaScript through Minecraft mods, also known as My Sister's Boy Genius, according to Brad's holiday party speech. He'd been brought in on a rotational growth track, which apparently meant throwing him into production like a grenade. At 2:07 a.m., staging went down. Hard. Broken migrations, missing Docker images. A cascade failure. So bad it took out the internal sandbox environment and triggered a PagerDuty alert titled, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." She was the one who patched it, rewrote the corrupted YAML, rebuilt the container tree, and manually restored access to the vault keys using an offline backup she wasn't technically allowed to keep. By 5:12 a.m., everything was green again. No one noticed. No one thanked her. At 11:45 a.m., Jason Brantley hosted a lunch and learn in the main conference room, a catered event featuring quinoa wraps and a presentation titled Cloud Agility in a Rapidly Scaling Ecosystem. She watched from the back, clutching her lukewarm tea like a stress ball. Jason, hair gelled to the consistency of fiberglass, wearing Allbirds and Patagonia vest, clicked through a slideshow that included terms like synergized dev flow and auto-balanced chaos clusters. He had animated GIFs. He said the phrase minimum viable latency. Then he showed a diagram. It was her architecture, her exact design, lifted from a white paper she wrote 8 months ago and saved to an internal Confluence page. He just slapped a gradient background on it and added a label that said Brantley Stack version 2.0. She didn't say a word. Not even when Brad stood up afterward and clapped like Jason had just cured cancer using Postman and Vibes. Not even when they gave him a branded hoodie and a company Slack emoji. She went back to her desk and updated the folder. Ergonomically screwed nepotism gate stack theft.png. Ergonomically screwed Slack logs JSON WTF deploy.txt. Ergonomically screwed evidence. Brantley permissions changed. olog to CSV. And then, silently, methodically, she opened a secure shell and installed her own monitoring scripts. Not to sabotage. Not yet, just visibility. Because Jason Brantley had root access now. And when you give a toddler a flamethrower, you don't wait for fire to start. You get the damn receipts. The performance review started like a bad Tinder date. Too many compliments up front. Zero intention of commitment. Your incident response times have been phenomenal, said Marcus from People Ops, reading directly off the form like he was announcing a game show prize. You've been a ray all rock for team, especially through the pipeline outages. Leadership sees you as dependable, focused, emotionally resilient. She nodded politely, the kind of nod you give while mentally peeling paint off a wall with your eyes. Any feedback for us? Marcus asked with that smile people use when they're about to rob you with kindness. Just hoping to revisit compensation, she said, careful and calm. It's been 2 years since my last raise, and I absorbed 2 roles when we lost trend in Q4. Marcus clicked something on his screen, paused, and spoke in a tone that belonged in a breakup text. Yeah, so about that. With the ongoing budget freeze, we unfortunately aren't able to offer merit adjustments at this time. A freeze. After she'd saved him $380,000 in cloud spend last quarter alone. After covering on call every other weekend. After fixing the nephew's messes before they took prod down. She stared at him. He stared at his keyboard like it owed him money. But Marcus continued. Leadership does want to empower your growth journey. They've asked if you consider mentoring Jason Brantley. He's shown real promise in cloud forward thinking, and your experience will be invaluable in shaping his infrastructure hygiene. Her jaw didn't drop. It locked. She smiled. The kind of smile you reserve for dinner with your ex and his new girlfriend who sells crystals on Etsy. That's an opportunity, she said flatly. That night, she drank a mug of chamomile that tasted like burnt patience and opened GitHub to review Jason's recent pushes. Maybe she'd find something redeemable. Maybe he was trying. Instead, she found the apocalypse buried inside a utility script. A forgotten side branch he'd pushed without a pull request had this line. Their AWS root key, hard-coded in plain text, in a repo set to public. The timestamp. For days ago, long enough for a dozen bots to crawl it. Long enough to trigger a silent firestorm if someone had decided to test it. It wasn't just sloppy. It was existential malpractice. She froze, screenshotted, archived the commit hash, then checked if anyone had downloaded the repo. They had twice. One IP from Germany, one from Virginia. She didn't scream. She didn't call anyone. She didn't even delete the key yet. Instead, she opened her encrypted drive and created a new folder inside ergonomically screwed. Brantley breached. She pasted the screenshots, the access logs, the downloaded repo metadata. Then she opened her journal and wrote 4 words in ink thick enough to dent the paper. They chose a nephew. At 2:34 a.m., she launched her personal code runner and began testing a series of quietly crafted S3 filters, scripts she'd written months ago, back when she first noticed billing anomalies. Just idle little things, nothing illegal, nothing that touched prod. But they showed her everything. Who accessed what was growing out of control, which regions were bleeding money, and, most importantly, where to reroute the invoices. She didn't want revenge. She wanted clarity. And now she had it. The LLC paperwork had been sitting in her filing cabinet for 18 months, untouched, unopened. Backup plan from a savvier version of herself. Just in case, she told the notary with a tired laugh and a sore back. The name on the paperwork was hers. The address, a rented P.O. box 2 towns over. Harmless, legal, boring. Now it was useful. It took 11 minutes. 11 silent, tensionless minutes in a dusty back corner of the AWS billing console, navigated with the confidence of someone who had built the company's entire tagging system from scratch while eating vending machine almonds during a weekend outage. She didn't reroute the funds. She wasn't a criminal. She rerouted the invoices, specifically the monthly master billing summaries, cost usage reports, and service level breakdowns. Instead of going to finance of the company, they now CC'd a new billing contact. Invoice at northbranchops.com. North Branch Ops, LLC. Her LLC, a real entity, nothing fake, nothing hidden. AWS allowed for multiple billing contacts. All she did was add herself with audit logs with traceability. It wasn't theft, it was sight. The first invoice came through 2 days later, an eye-watering $212,496.73. That was normal. What wasn't normal were the 6 new EC2 instances spun up in Sao Paulo with no tagging, no IAM restrictions, and no monitoring. The tags just said, Test San. Of course, she smiled. She set up her own alerts using AWS Cost Explorer APIs, quiet little triggers that pipe directly into her home server, encrypted and time-stamped. Every spike, every over-provisioned RDS instance, every misconfigured EBS volume, and always, a copy tucked away in the growing folder. Ergonomically screwed billing held monthlies. But this wasn't about Jason anymore. This was about Brad, the CFO who bragged on investor calls about agile lean cloud architecture, while his nephew was single-handedly recreating the Titanic on Port 443. This was about the silence from HR, the ergonomic genocide, the fake culture of motion as merit. The treadmill desk now collected dust. No one touched it, but her back still hurt. Her hands still trembled from fatigue. And now, every byte burned on the company card whispered itself into her archive. She discovered the company was running parallel Kubernetes clusters for the same dev environment. One used, one orphaned, both costing thousands. She saw dormant S3 buckets hosting full product snapshots. Lambda functions that hadn't triggered in 6 months, still ticking up idle charges. She flagged one that was leaking logs into a publicly readable bucket, complete with user metadata and timestamps. She didn't report it. She logged it, cold, precise, surgical. The beauty of it all, she hadn't written a single line of malicious code. No backdoors, no deletions, no sabotage. Everything she had access to, she was supposed to. She just watched. And every invoice that landed in her inbox told a little story of chaos, of fraud, of a house built on unpaid technical debt and TikTok management theories. She stopped logging hours, stopped asking for ergonomic waivers, stopped checking Slack threads. Instead, she focused on the receipts. Let Jason commit. Let Marcus plan his little people ops scavenger hunts. She had every number, every anomaly, every skeleton-shaped EC2 instance. And when the hammer finally came down, When the audit arrived and they scrambled for answers, she wouldn't even need to raise her voice. All she'd have to do is open the folder. The first sign was a kombucha selection. Suddenly, the fridge in the break room, which once offered expired LaCroix and half a bottle of ranch, was restocked with $6 gut health tonics in glass bottles, so pretentious they probably had agents. IPO energy, someone whispered with a smirk. Then came the suits, investors, advisors, consultants who wore lanyards with pre-IPO strategy printed in Helvetica bold and asked questions like, "What's your R delta curve?" while eating chia bowls. Brad, the CFO, strutted between meetings like a Wall Street peacock, using phrases like lean cloud architecture and minimalist spend posture without irony. On a Zoom call, he smiled and said, "We've slashed infrastructure costs by 22% this quarter." She nearly spat out her coffee. The infrastructure hadn't been slashed. It was bleeding. Shadow IT was metastasizing like mold in a flooded basement. The interns had discovered Terraform and were deploying playground environments like they were running a Minecraft server farm. No tagging, no IAM roles, no logging, just raw. Wild West compute chaos spinning in regions no one even monitored. Asia Pacific Seoul for EC2S. Canada Central, 2 GPU instances running stable diffusion jobs. Virginia, an entire VPC named Do Not Delete L. She didn't stop them. She logged everyone. Meanwhile, the IPO machine roared louder. They brought in a consulting firm called Gravitas Works that smelled like cologne and NDAs. The company started getting polished, removing broken links from the website, fixing spelling errors in company wiki, even repainting the wellness zone walls a calming ocean blue. But then, quietly, inevitably it happened, an audit request landed in finance's lap. Nothing dramatic. Just a standard inquiry from one of the pre-IPO compliance firms. We'd like to review 3 months of AWS invoices to validate monthly burn trends. It should have taken 5 minutes. Except the invoices weren't there. They checked the finance inbox. Empty. They checked Brad's folder. Nothing since January. They messaged the IT coordinator, who suggested checking the shared drive, which, of course, hadn't synced properly since Q1. They escalated to Jason, who panicked and tried to run a manual cost report via the AWS console. He didn't even have access to billing. The Slack channel for hashtag cloud costs lit up like a Christmas tree dipped in gasoline. Anyone got the March invoice? Is the billing contact set to North Branch Ops? Is that a consulting firm? Who the hell is invoice at North Branch Ops? She watched from her desk, sipping mint tea. Someone pinged her once, just a vague mention. She didn't reply. She didn't have to. Her name wasn't on the invoice trail, not anywhere. Every change she made had been logged under existing credentials. Every action traceable to roles she had been granted, permissions she was expected to use. Nothing rogue, nothing secret, just invisible. The real panic didn't explode. It festered. Brad stopped smiling in meetings. Jason started staying late, looking nervous. People whispered in the hallways, a low hum of suspicion and confusion. The interns were temporarily restricted from AWS. Finance called in Gravitas Works for a billing anomaly sweep. They started canceling non-essential spending. The kombucha disappeared. She watched it all from a calm, clinical distance. A scientist watching a frog realized the water's boiling. By Friday, the investors had postponed their site tour. Brad was out sick. The founder sent a company-wide Slack at 2 a.m. with the subject line, "We're all in this together." She saved it, PDF format, indexed. Ergonomically screwed collapse in progress together.pdf. And then she went back to reading invoices. She wasn't done collecting. Not yet. She didn't want credit. She wanted consequences. One Thursday, somewhere between her third cup of tea and the CFO's 7th panic Slack message in hashtag Ops Forum, she logged in through a VPN, opened a private tab, and composed an email to a journalist known only by her byline, Sis Whistle. Sis Whistle wasn't flashy. She didn't post selfies or chase SEO. But when cloud companies bled quietly in boardrooms, she smelled it. And when things caught fire, compliance scandals, data leaks, cover-ups, She knew exactly where to aim the gasoline. Her message was simple, sterile, surgical. Subject: possible billing discrepancies plus unmonitored instances. No stolen data, no internal sabotage, just decay. Shadow infrastructure growing in blind spots. Ghost resources chewing through six figures. Publicly accessible buckets with metadata headers. Unnamed interns launching untagged EC2S. No tagging policy enforcement. AWS root credentials exposed briefly in public repos. All still active. Attached, 3 screenshots. A line graph showing a $42,000 spike in Brazil. A policy audit log with access from an unregistered IP block. A partial repo index showing a commit with the word root key in the file name. No company name. No identifiable variables. Just metadata and shame. She hit send, logged out, deleted her cache, and waited. Days later, Sys Whistle dropped a blind item titled The Cost of Cloud Complacency, a pre-IPO company with a budget black hole. The story didn't name names, but the symptoms were unmistakable to anyone watching. She'd included just enough truth to sound absurdly specific. Instances running in forgotten VPCs, in turn triggered infrastructure debt, audit tracking rerouted to third-party addresses. Reddit got hold of it. So did Hacker News. Threads went hot. Sounds like someone about to blow their IPO over some S3 ghosts. Hard relate. We had an intern delete our entire logging infra last year. Cloud minimalism, my ass. She watched the fallout unfold from the serenity of her kitchen table. Laptop balanced between an old candle and a cracked mug full of dandelion tea. Her son was doing homework in the next room, blissfully unaware that his mom was playing puppet master to a billion-dollar company's slow-motion nervous breakdown. Back at the office, all hell broke loose. Brad scheduled a 9 a.m. mandatory clarity session and spent 45 minutes trying to assure the execs that there's no factual basis for what's being circulated. But his face said otherwise. The founder stared at him like he'd been caught photocopying his genitals onto the company prospectus. Then came the finger-pointing. Jason blamed the interns. Finance blamed Jason. Legal blamed unsecured email protocols. Someone blamed ChatGPT. And all the while, no one blamed her because no one saw her. They saw a quiet, worn-out engineer who'd stopped asking for a chair and started bringing her own tea bags. The kind of person who disappears in a fire drill because everyone assumes she's already outside. The invisible glue no one thinks about till it rips. That night, she logged in again, navigated IAM, opened the root account credentials, and set the clock. She didn't delete, didn't sabotage. She scheduled a control lockout. When the time came, their keys would simply stop working, the same way trust does. Quietly, without drama, with receipts. In her inbox, a fresh invoice ticked in, $186,983.33, addressed to North Branch Ops, LLC. She saved it. Ergonomically screwed final phase preignition.pdf. And then she turned off the lights, finished her tea, and whispered one word to herself in the dark. Tomorrow. The CFO was halfway through his TEDx talk when the lights started flickering. Not the stage lights, no. The dashboards, fitness, finance, and the future of work. The slide behind him blared in bold red Helvetica, flanked by a stock photo of a treadmill desk and a pie chart labeled Operational Efficiency Gains. Brad stood there in his performance fleece vest, arms wide like he just ascended from the wellness heavens, telling an audience of bored investors and media interns how movement-first culture is directly correlated with cognitive throughput. At minute 11, his face froze on the live stream, not metaphorically, literally. The stream cut mid-sentence. His voice hiccuped like a corrupted MP3. Then, buffering error 5003, silence. She was watching from home. Fuzzy socks, a mug of lemon tea. One tab open to the live stream, the other to AWS. Everything timed